Okay, this is the last question in this section, so you know that it's going to be pretty challenging. So question 8 says, critics say that the autobiographical work Brothers and Keepers by John Edgar Wideman is surprising in that it celebrates and yet blanks his own role in the life of his brother. So we do have a pretty good signal word here in this word yet, which is really just a fancy version of but or however. And so it's telling us that there's contrast between this word and celebrates, because the sentence says that this work does these two things at the same time. It celebrates and yet does something that's kind of the opposite of celebrating his role in the life of his brother. So we know that since celebrates is such a positive word, we know that this word is going to be negative. And it needs to be a word that works with this following it. So let's read these answer choices in to see what works best. And for this, you don't have to reread the whole question because you really can get what's going on with a contrast if you just read right from here. It celebrates and yet blanks his own role. So we'll just fill it in from that point. Okay. So it celebrates and yet censures his own role in the life of his brother. So censures means to publicly or officially criticize. So this actually makes sense because it is a autobiography, so it is public. So that's pretty good, but let's check out the other answers. It's surprising in that it celebrates and yet exacerbates his own role in the life of his brother. So this is not terrible, but exacerbates means to make worse. You've probably heard someone say that just exacerbated the problem. It just means it made it worse. Or someone might say your dog exacerbates my allergies because I'm allergic to dogs, something like that. So this is not terrible, but if this autobiography is celebrating John Edgar's role in the life of his brother, and it's also exacerbating his own role in the life of his brother. It's the second part that doesn't really, it just doesn't make sense to say that he's exacerbating his role, making his role worse in the life of his brother. It's just strange and it doesn't work as well as A does. So A is still the winner between A and B. Okay. This autobiography is surprising in that it celebrates and yet explores his own role. So those are not contrasting enough. Explores is not nearly negative enough to work for this sentence completion. Okay. This work is surprising in that it celebrates and yet duplicates his own role in the life of his brother. Similarly, duplicate is not contrasting enough with celebrates, and it's not negative enough. And the last one, it's surprising in that it celebrates and yet delineates his own role in the life of his brother. Delineates means to clearly mark out something, to basically make a line of demarcation indicating a break between two things. So often it's used when they're talking about territories on maps, but it can also be used figuratively. In this sentence, it just doesn't work as a contrast to celebrates because delineating his own role in the life of his brother, it's just not a strong enough contrast to celebrating. It's not terrible. It could work, but censures is much better because you have a really solid contrast to the word celebrates, which is very positive, and censure, which is very negative.